Welcome to Tech Tactics Live. We are at the 66th Porsche Parade, and we're recording this at the tail end of Parade. And those of you that are watching with us live today, I hope you enjoy it. We will be recording these and releasing them at a later date. Today I'm with a gentleman that I first met at Tech Tactics when it was presented in the East Coast. I believe it's in its 40-some year that we've done this event, and I've always sat in his presentations and have been amazed. And I know I'm hosting Tech Tactics Live today, but at some point when I turn the show over to him, I'm probably just gonna end up sitting down at the seat here and just enjoy all of the adventures that he and the Paterek Brothers out of Chatham, New Jersey, the restoration, the cars that come across your shop, and the level of expertise that you have is unmatched by any other shop. So John, thank you for joining us today, and let's roll with what you brought us.
Thank you. Well, I joined the club in 1972 with my now wife Donna, who was my girlfriend at the time, and we had a 66 912, which was kind of like, you have a 912, you can sit over there. And I said to Donna when we were leaving the first meeting, I said, what is this? They're driving Volkswagens instead of their Porsche, and they're laughing at my little four-cylinder 912. But that car actually started my whole business because everybody was saying to me, you need to get your car to the point where you're happy with it, like take it down and repaint it, and it had no rust on it because it came from Palo Alto, California, and it had brand new snow tires on it. So we took that car and kept it, until 1979. Yeah. So that at that time, now I've been on the National Tech Committee since 1985. Bruce Anderson appointed me as the person that goes for questions, and so I'm still on it. And
we're not going to let you go.
And the Tech Tactics that Boo spoke about, I spoke at 40 of them, nonstop. So hopefully that'll get back on track again in Easton.
Yes, sir.
All right, so this first slide up here is a diagram. First of all, the top is Paterek Brothers, and we took the word Porsche and just changed a couple of letters, but it's got the same 7 letters. And then the car underneath is a 52 America Roadster, and that's a line drawing. They made 16 of these cars, and you could see here, they changed the cockpit, they changed the deck lid length, they changed the wheel well height. Let's see, 16 cars. So we're lucky enough to get the second oldest one in existence. And we bought that in '79, mainly because Donna gave me this little book in 1975, and it had a lady backing a car up, and she goes, see that car? I want that car. I said, Donna, it says in the book they made 20 of them. I don't care, get me one. So we ended up finding the only stylish gray one, and she was 7.5 months pregnant with our first son, Andrew, who's now 42. And we drove all the way out to Pittsburgh, a town south of Pittsburgh, and looked at the car and said, we want it. Now the girl that owned it, it was her father's. He bought it brand new, and he was a dentist in Pennsylvania, in the Pittsburgh area. And we went to look at the car and we said, okay, we'll take it. I don't know how much I want for it. Okay, here's my numbers and everything. Let's just, when you decide what you want for it, which was like 4 weeks later, she came up with the price and we agreed to that. And then we went with an open trailer and a beat up old pickup truck and drove out to Pennsylvania after she had Andrew. So that car stayed with us for 26 years.
What was the condition of the car when you found it?
Unfortunately, I don't have any pictures of it here, but it had a dented quarter panel because the dentist used to ram his lawnmower, riding lawnmower into it. And he scraped the rocker, and he ripped the back bumper off. But the car was sitting in the garage since 1959. 8,400 miles on it. And the original Metzler tires, which we took an air tank and blew up the tires, and they're still holding air today. And the car now is in the Wolfgang Porsche private collection. And he has broken the 10,000 mile mark on it. So that was good. This is what they call a Cardex. And this is the paper from the factory that documents everything that was ever done to the car. So up top you have the VIN number, the engine number, the transmission, the K86, 186, that's the key code. So you can just get a key cut from that. And silver metal, it was a silver car with the code, and leather interior, which you never see in a 356. So these are all the options, and one of them was a sunroof and Rudge wheels too. So this fellow that owned it, here's the original owner here. He's from Michigan and Warren, and that's the date it was made, that's the third month, the 30th day of 1960. Tires are Michelin's, and this fellow called me, he found me on YouTube, and he called me and said, I need to get this car running again. It's been in my garage since 1985. Okay. That's a picture of the car. It has the scripts on the back are deleted from the factory. So is the hood handle, and it's got one of the things that was weird on the Cardex that proved it. It had a black headliner and black sun visors. And this car had that, never taken out or put in by anybody. This is original paint on the car. Okay, and you can see he changed from the Rudge wheels to standard B wheels and drums. And but it does have a sunroof. Okay. You can see that. Been sitting since 1985. Now, he wanted me to get this car working because he had cancer, and he said, I got to take my son for a ride. He's 10 years old, and he's got to go for a ride, this car, because he's going to inherit it someday. You're flying here, and I'm...
Yeah.
Okay.
He wants to get an advanced look at the car.
So we drove to look at this car. It was in like mid-New Jersey. Okay, that little bean on the top too is a little red, it looks like a jelly bean, and that's still on there. And the mirrors were put on by the factory too, which is very unusual.
John, I noticed the photo of the hood earlier. I don't know if Robert can go back. There's no handle on the hood.
No hood handle.
So is that supposed to be like that, or did they do that sort of like an outlaw modification?
No, this was done by the factory, because my son Andrew went inside, and he can find anything that's been touched on cars, because his eyes are incredible. And there's no grinding marks or weld marks or anything. It's just totally smooth.
So is there like an option code from back in the day where I'd like to order this car but no handle?
Well, they can do anything that you want with your car, but most of the times, you know, people would never take the handle off because it has the crest on it.
Right.
Okay. And that's the little antenna with the little beam. These are the original door handles, not pitted. The gaps are really gorgeous on this car because they're original. Okay. That was just a, service for oil change. Original rugs. That's the VIN number on top. So it's 111010. And the paint code, that's the Reuter number 608 for silver.
So that color, which looks matte to me, is actually...
Well, it does it in that slide over there.
Oh, but in that... Okay,
yeah.
So it's silver. Gotcha.
Yeah. They're basically were not clear coated. They were painted silver with enamel. And they did not clear coat the cars back then. So everybody that bought a silver car ended up repainting it after 3 or 4 years because it turned chalky. That's the interior. Got the optional deluxe horn ring on it. And there's also, if you look carefully, you can see the fog light switch. And it came with a radio from the factory with the speakers. Now, our 62 Super 90 cab that we recently sold had everything but the radio in it. So it had speakers, antenna, no radio. So the radio was actually something that was added by the dealer.
What's that little to the left of the clutch, that button there? What is that?
That's a snap to hold the mats in place.
Oh, okay, so they don't fall.
Well, they don't slide around. And most, yeah, somebody's giving me the pointer. And it also had sheepskin seat covers on it. Yeah, that just shows you underneath. You can see, carefully how, there's
Go back, Robert.
yeah. You can see the original carpeting in the car. You can see it sitting in the garage. You see it on the shift boot. You can see all the
Mold?
mold.
Mold?
Yeah.
Call it like it is, mold.
So it had that all over everything. And there's the little band in here. That rubber band is still in good shape. He had the original toolkit with it. It's a pretty damn nice car.
Can we stop here real quick about the glove box? For those of you that have been in the club for quite some time, panoramas were the size, Porsche Panorama, the magazine, were created in a size so that they could fit into that glove box.
Yes. Okay. Let's see. This just shows you the grease fittings for the doors, and all this stuff is still 100% original on this car, so it's kind of nice. And this is a sunroof that it was not an electric sunroof, it was a manual sunroof. So you click that little handle and moved it back. You can see the black visors here too. And I was amazed to see this stuff.
So you just turn that handle and you just
Slide it back.
Okay.
And what you do is you turn the handle, slide it back, and then click it again if you only want it open.
To lock in place?
6 inches or 10 inches. These little lights are still the original ones. Okay. That's just a shot of the inside to show the footman's loops. That's the underside of the hood. We wanted to just show you that it had no grinding marks and the hood was never bent. Usually, well, not necessarily on this car, but the earlier cars, when nobody was used to it, they used to bend the hood after they put gas in. So you'd fill a tank with gas and then just pull down on the hood, and the hood would bend like this.
Yeah, because for those of you that aren't familiar with 356 hoods, when you prop them up, they stand up, but before you close them, you actually have to push it up first to unlatch it and then close it.
Yes.
And if you don't, you end up bending the hood because the latch wasn't freed.
That's the gas tank, which is actually dated. Somebody sprayed the top of it. It's supposed to be CAD plated, but this little gas sending unit is also dated. Oh, there's a 60 on the gas tank that's punched in by the factory. So the tank, so if you're looking, I want to really be picky if you're going to do a pre-purchase inspection, look for the date on an early car with a gas tank like this.
How many locations on a car roughly have stamps like that?
On the very earlier cars, like a 56, 57, it would be stamped on the hood. Mm-hmm. There's one in the back deck lid right underneath the grill, and then in front of the gas tank and on the little metal plate. So there's a fair amount of stamping. Yeah, there's your original bolts on the hood, and they're not plated. They were plated and painted by the factory. And these little, no, you could go one more. Go. These little things, if you take the hood off, you can see the number 10 in there. You could take the hood off and then just put a pin through there as you're lining it up, and it'll be totally aligned. Those are the alignment holes. That's the typical thing that happened to most cars is that once the water runs down into those corners, it starts rusting like crazy. And that's still happening on cars with galvanized. There's the original motor. I think we're the first ones to ever take it out. That's the wheels that came off of it. They're Rudge wheels. They have a knockoff center on them.
So any idea, so those were optioned wheels, why would they go to the other wheels that are currently on the car?
Because the brake drums were better on standard wheels. Mm. So they were down in his basement. He must have had $20,000 worth of spare parts on it. Yes?
Did the Delta Mark 10?
Did the what?
Delta Mark 10 that you showed in the previous slide on the left.
Ignition, aftermarket ignition.
Wow. The engine ran, I know that.
So the question,
that thing, yeah.
So the question was, did that ignition system work on the car?
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah, because I'll show. It hadn't died, no. There's the wheels. That's a spinner. So Auf is on and Zu is off. So you had a brass hammer that you had to beat the hell out of these things with. And most people didn't like doing that because it actually started to dog ear the spinner. There's the fellow with his son and his wife, and there's the car. They're hoping to get it running, and they had it transported to our shop. Okay, typical flatbed. But if you do ever tow a 356, don't tow it with the tow hook in the front. wrap it around next to the torsion bars. Oh, that's Andrew. He makes signs, and usually they're not this nice. You know, he doesn't want anybody to touch it. But it has the super camber compensator on it. You can see how scroungy and dirty it is underneath.
So that camber compensator, was that a factory option, or?
Yeah.
That's a factory option, okay.
Super 90s, it came with all Super 90s. This is just a super engine though. Okay, here comes the motor coming out. And guess what's in the transmission? The engine was locked. We couldn't turn it one way or another.
Is that corn?
It's corn. The mouse went in there and filled the whole thing with corn to the point where you turn the engine over with the ignition and the corn would lock the engine.
Popcorn.
That's
Wow.
that's a really funny story to see that corn in there though.
Wow.
And mice can get into almost anything, and they got in through one of the little holes on a transmission. Anybody ever have corn in their transmission? No?
In the gas tank, maybe.
Yeah. There's my brother driving the engine because the engine seemed to be a little bit locked up, so we sprayed WD-40 into the cylinders, and then he sat there and he just kept tapping it, and all of a sudden it came loose. So besides the corn, the engine decided to not run anymore, turn over after all those years of storage. There's the engine out of the car. That's the rubber seal that goes around the engine. It just disintegrated with just age and oil and gasoline. You can see all this black on the manifolds. That's the carburetor's leaking all the gas out down onto that seal, and the seal just melted. That's my son measuring the gaps.
So you mentioned that was earlier that the gaps were very good, so this car must not have ever been in an accident?
Never been in an accident. And they did not want to paint it. They just wanted to get it functioning so that they could take it out and take the little 10-year-old for a ride. There he is, going for a ride. Unfortunately, he only lasted about 3 months after we finished the car and got it back to him. But maybe it extended his life by 2 months, just taking his son for a ride all the time.
Oh.
But I mean, these are stories that you can't make up. I mean, a guy gets a car and has it for all those years, and all of a sudden decides he wants to take his kid for a ride. So there you go. Let's see what this is. Oh, this is a 56 Speedster that this fellow that contacted me, and he contacted me, found me on I don't know if it was YouTube or one of those, and he called me up and asked if we would do a pre-purchase inspection. He didn't tell me it was his father's car. He just wanted me to look at the car. So Andrew and I drove there to Maryland, and that's a 8 of 56 it was built. That's the VIN number up there, 82503, and 804904 means it's a super. So in 56, they had a roller crank in them. So the whole time I'm going there, I'm saying, God, I hope the roller crank is okay in this car. So it was white with a black interior, and then not very many other options. But here they usually put down all the service calls that were made in the life of the car in the early days. Okay. think you skipped some. There should be a picture of it like from far away. That's it? Okay. Well, that's just a shot of the car with the hood open. The hood was never bent. Somebody in California painted it black in 1979 or 80. And this fellow's father bought the car and shipped it back to Philadelphia. And the car was repainted probably 40 years ago. And now it's black with a lot of crack marks in it. There's a gas tank. I don't know if you can see that the date on it. 756. This is a really cool tag on here from a shop in California that serviced it. There's the steering wheel, which unfortunately is the coupe wheel. I don't know how it ended up with a coupe wheel because it's almost an inch bigger than the Speedster wheel. But you can see all the rust eating all the chrome on everything. Somebody put a wooden shift knob on it. But everything else is original on it. The floor pan, the battery box. There's a good picture of it with the window that's fallen out of the top. That could be the original top too because it was a vinyl top. All the chrome on the car was done. They took it off when they painted the car and chrome plated the aluminum. So it was all corroded. Everything was shot. Bumper guards, everything.
John, when was this? Because we're always dreaming of barn finds.
Yeah, this is definitely a barn find.
When was this?
Well, I guess it was maybe about 2 years ago.
2 years ago, okay. So
And
they're
we're-
still out there.
Yeah, yeah. And there's, it doesn't look that good, but it's a super engine. And I took the pan down on the bottom and looked up in there with like a little viewing light and found out that somebody had changed it to a plain bearing crank at some time. So we're...
And is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it's a good thing for the owner because roller cranks usually broke and were damaged because people would put it in the wrong gear and lug it, and they just ruined the crank. But my brother had a 57 roller crank that was rebuilt by Jim Wellington and Bill Doyle, and Doyle was one of our guys in the club that restored 4-cam engines, and he passed maybe about 3 years ago or 4 years ago. But I actually sold the roller crank to John, the owner of this car, because someday if he takes it apart, he can put the roller crank back in. And the roller crank is brand new, everything rebuilt. There's a back shot of it. The tires were sitting flat. You can see how scrunched up they are. And
So I have to pause you right here because my heart just sank. Because as I said, I love barn find cars. And I noticed the tags of the cars in Maryland, which is where I live.
And it all,
What?
It also says Speedster on the
Exactly.
license plate. And I said, when you register in Jersey, because he lives in Westfield, when you register in Jersey, try and keep that plate, or go for, like a vanity plate. But you can see the corrosion all over the bumper guards. It had plastic reflectors in the back. They're supposed to be glass, and it has a horrible roof on it. But he says, I'm never going to put the top on, so I don't care. So he folds the top down, put a boot on it, and that was it. You can see the seats. I mean, this is an amazing car. And also, the guy was very tall that owned it because he took the wooden frames from the Speedster seat and put metal ones. So the car dropped down an inch. I mean, the seat did. It's got some, I don't know if it was mice eating the carpeting or whatever, but if you leave a car for any length of time and don't watch it, you're going to have a mouse get in there and do some nasty things to it. My friend Don Miliano had a 356C, and he was going to sell the car, and he didn't drive it very much. So he goes to start it, and it's coughing and spitting, all of a sudden a dead mouse shoots out the tailpipe. So the lady that was buying the car said, I don't want this car. That's just the underneath. You can see a little bit of the, I call it ivory. The factory calls it white, but it was ivory. And it's really a cool car. You can see, okay, you can go ahead. You can see the original hood crest on it that's orange and not burgundy. And there's a lot of cracks on this car. This has all the dirt on it. I went to look at the car. I scratched a little bit of the grime off the Talbot mirror, and my son went totally crazy on me, like, you've ruined it. I said, Andrew, you know, I do have to clean the chrome on this car. No, you don't. Leave it alone. Just leave it dirty. Leave all the...
He didn't make a sign soon enough, because the other car he made a sign that said, do not touch it, clean.
I scraped the little bit of corrosion off that mirror. And then when he went away to the Netherlands, I cleaned the chrome on the car.
So this car here, when it was repainted black, I don't know when it was repainted, but is that like a single stage? Is it enamel or?
It's single stage and probably acrylic lacquer.
Okay. And does that make a difference for you if you were restoring, like how it was repainted?
No, we're just either sand it all off or strip it. He's measuring the thickness of the paint. Again, here, every place on the car, he's got a measurement with the little gauge. The side of the door, the deck lid. That's more of the deck lid. Another door shot. Then the inside has the last time it was serviced. The underside of the dashboard. And believe me, when you don't drain your gas out of stuff for that many years, it is like gum inside of everything. In the carburetors, you saw the knob up here that had paint overspray from doing the dash, and somebody had put black knobs on the rest of the car too, which is for a B. There's the original Reuter badge on the car, which I think is great. That's got a nice tone. I'd never change that.
Did they say when this car last ran?
85.
85. Wow.
There's the horrible wheels that were on the car. It had Mexican chrome wheels on it, and the hubcaps were from God knows where because they were all rusty. It had one 1962 wheel on it, which may be this front wheel. But we found there's the picture that I thought we were going to start with. That's the 100-acre farm in Maryland that the car lived at, and the owner of the car.
I'm looking at my Maryland friends in the crowd here. Did you guys know this car existed?
Well, this is on a big piece of property, and that car was in the barn, and he also had a 79 turbo and a 79 SC, which was in the garage behind his greenhouse. And it was the brown color, it was just brown with a cork interior. And they were going to divide the cars up because the father had dementia, and he doesn't even remember that he owns this car. And he chose the Speedster. One daughter got the turbo, and the other daughter got the SC. So I think he won.
Yeah.
And there it is. Oh, this is another car now, and that's in my town that we've been in the same house since '76, and this car was 3 blocks over, a '59A Cabriolet, and original paint, not the original muffler, but everything else. You know, it's got decals and stuff stuck all over it, but really cool. And the seats are leather, and all the seams just fell apart on the whole seat. You can see it was used for transportation to college. There's the vinyl on the door panels and leather on the seats. That's how all cabriolets were made, unless they were a special order with full leather in them. And that's 0% of the time that we've ever seen them. Okay? You can just, it has tan mats in it, which are really nice, original rugs. Look at the seat though, it's all splitting apart. Now that can be taken and re-sewed with padding inside that's not falling apart, because some of these cars, they use foam inside of them from the factory, and the foam just, it looked like sawdust when it was disintegrated. And everybody would complain, there's sawdust all over my floor. It's not sawdust, it's the rubber. So there's your engine, and this thing runs like a champ. Okay, this is a car that this guy bought the car, wants to keep the paint original. He calls it a real patina.
Definitely a lot of patina.
Yeah. So would you look at that and say, this is wonderful. Look at the paint on the roof of this car. It's like somebody took a disc sander and sanded it down. So right now we're going through the whole car and we're cutting all the rust of the longitudinal members, half the floor pan. The battery box is original, but it's got rot coming through like on the top of that fender. And they always rot there.
And they want to keep it that way.
Yeah. And the interior is horrible. It's got one black seat in it, and the other seat is tan, and jump seat is just falling apart. But he wants to keep the patina. You can see the mat. Somebody tried to get it out and ripped it in half. There's nothing left of the hood seal. See, he's got all the original inspection stickers. What do you think? Patina?
I think patina can be cool.
Yeah.
You know, but maybe that's the way of them justifying not getting it completely restored, but just getting it running.
Well,
but the question is, you know, at what point is it unsafe?
Well, we're going to get rid of the unsafe stuff because all the bottom stuff, Andrew's cutting all that out and TIG welding new steel in there, and then he'll paint it with satin black and then re-undercoat it.
Go back to that picture because it looked like Fred Flintstone's car, where I can see the road underneath the pedals.
See, everything in
That's not patina. That is a safety issue.
Well, that's what we're going for to improve.
Wow, that's a big project.
Yeah, there's the interior. You can see how the seats. I wouldn't call that patina.
So when they bring this patina car to you and they just say, "Oh, I want to keep most of it and just get it running," like what's their expectation of when they're getting the car back and what's the reality?
Well, with the amount of rust that's on this car, and I'm talking about underneath the front suspension where the sway bar mounts up to, one side is perfect, the other side is totally missing.
Oh, so you have to rebuild that structural area.
Yeah, and the steering wheel is so beautiful on this car, you can't believe it. Underneath all that grime and everything, the wheel itself is perfect, but the center, somebody tried to pry out the horn button and destroyed the middle of the horn of the steering wheel.
Added patina.
So I sat there with JB Weld and masking tape, and I made the whole edge up with JB Weld. JB Quick, though.
JB Quick.
He sent the gauges out to the West Coast to have them refurbished, and he told them he didn't want them to get rid of the...
So that's the after photo?
No, this is before, but he did not want to get rid of the chrome bezels on there because they were all pitted and hideous. But everything inside of them was garbage too. Like a little button in the center of the tachometer fell off and was laying down on the bottom. So $2,400 later, you have gauges that have clean glass, working mechanisms, but to me, horrible looking bezels.
Tell me how you really feel about patina cars.
Now this elastic usually just stretches out to the point and falls apart, and that's still intact. But there's your Virginia, I don't know if this is an inspection sticker.
I'm kind of impressed the elastic still is taut, right?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
You can.
Wow.
Well, this is my son. He's 42, and he's really, really patient. And he sits there and takes all this stuff out, cleans it, treats it, and then TIG welds new sections in.
So the center tunnel there, why is there like 3 different layers of metal? Go back, Robert. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So,
this is an A. This is a like a tunnel cover made out of aluminum, and then you glue your mat on top of that. I don't know what we're doing with that, but I know. Look at that.
the patina pedal. I like that.
Well, he held it with electrical tape. Any questions about this rust? It definitely has rust, to the point where the clutch cable goes through just fell off the car.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's what the thing that holds the little toe board down, the wooden board. Mm-hmm. It's all rotted away. Okay, that's the jump seat area. That's the little piece that covers the shift mechanism.
Ooh. Wow.
That's the diagonal member.
So at what point will you say, I mean, I guess everything's rebuildable, but
yeah, the diagonal member has to go,
yeah.
and also the little thing for the clutch cable to go through. That thing, there's nothing holding it in place.
So all these sections that have been rusted off, are you rebuilding out of fresh tin, or are there places that
we're
make
getting
the parts?
Stuff from up in Canada, and it's galvanized. And unfortunately, it's very hard to TIG weld galvanized steel. So we dip it in muriatic acid until that goes away.
And then you can work with it.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's another nice thing to work with is muriatic acid. You know?
More rust.
Yeah, this is his frame support, I think. That's what's left of it. Yeah, say it. You know what that is.
Wow.
But you can see hand scraping at what it does. Carefully taking all the tar off and then cleaning it and then treating it, repainting it again, and then re-undercoat it after all the welding's done. Oh, that's the brake drum. Look at the brake drum. Look at this. That's all bubbling growing underneath the wheel.
Wow.
There's nothing left of that brake drum. So I did get a new brake drum from Adam Wright on Obtanium. And he has a lot of stuff. He also has wheels too. So we had to put new hubcap clips on it. The wheels on the car were actually beautiful. That's what you're looking at from the tow hook back.
Where's the rest of it?
Look, he actually put a block under here and crushed the panel.
Wow.
See it bent up here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really wondering about this preservation deal. we're going to preserve certain things, but the rest of the car outside is all worn down paint. But you're very careful. You put your Andrew took a picture of the visors, and everything that came out of the car is corroded. The bumper overriders. Whew. Okay, so next time we have a presentation, we'll show you that all welded up.
How many hours is that car done?
How many hours? Probably $60,000 at $150 an hour. And that's not painting the outside of the car either, because we're going to leave that the way he thinks he likes it. So I just judged 7 cars at this year's 356 full restoration. And the guy that had the Ivory Roadster and the car that won People's Choice both had this little book which goes through everything on the car. You have to look at this, because I have never, as a judge, been handed something like this. It's got the Cardex, it's got the COA, and it's got all the process of the restoration, how much parts cost. Pretty wild, right? But I never ever had one of those things.
I'll start over here. So we all know about supply chain issues. So in your business, with the value of these cars and with the things, and I know you fabricate a number of the stuff yourself, like how has supply chain issues affected your business?
It's gotten better because you have the shop up in Canada that's making a lot of really great parts. And Porsche Classics has a lot of good restoration parts now too. And I think there's more stuff now than there was 30 years ago by far.
That's good to hear.
Plus we have Carlisle and swap meets like Carlisle that you can go and find things. Right, Donna? And it's called Clean Out the Garage, John. Let's get all the stuff out of here.
And we have talked about one day coming to your house, and Donna really wants me to come with a trailer and go through.
With the trailer? I thought you
Oh, I didn't mention the trail part to you?
Well, we have 356 and 911 parts. And also 63 guitars and basses, and 500 miniature 143rd Porsches.
Oh my goodness. So talking about like the prices of cars today, and like that patina one, if you rewound 25 years ago and you found a car like that, you probably wouldn't have made the effort to save that.
Well, I probably would have paid $5,000 for it, because our first 356 that we bought in 75 was $750
$750
with a damaged door. So I found a guy in my region that had a good door, so I gave him $50 and gave him my damaged door, and I put it on her car. And that car is the reason why we have the America Roadster, because we were showing it at the 79 Parade in Reston, and she came up and said, I love your car. I want your car. Just like my dad had a 53 in silver, both silver, and I'll trade you. Okay, sounds like a good deal. And then we go, about 3 weeks later, she says, I don't want your car. I won't take care of it.
Wow.
So it came out to be a purchase only.
So you've come across a lot of cars through the years being in the industry. Has there been, share some stories of cars that you wish you bought and you wish you didn't let go?
Well, I probably could say that, keeping the Roadster for 26 years was a wonderful thing, but we did everything that we could do with that car. Pebble Beach, Amelia Island, Meadowbrook, Louis Vuitton and Rockefeller Center, and almost got hit by an SUV in '05 at the parade.
I did not know that.
Yeah, because I forgot my stupid car cover, so I turned around to go get it, and coming back, this lady's going to make a right-hand turn right in front of me. I'm blowing this little horn. So I came back to the room and I said to Donna, that's it.
Time to go.
Time to go.
And it found its way home to probably the best place for it.
Yes. Yeah. And he actually sat in the car, Wolfgang Porsche sat in the car at the 81 parade, because it was in the final banquet with a 910, and those two cars were there, and he sat in it, and he was just happy as anything sitting there. So if you go on YouTube and you punch in Wolfgang Porsche's 5 favorite cars, he'll be singing it again and has his arm out. Yes, and the door is cut down, and this is just perfect for California, where the car came from. I said, California, New Jersey.
California, New Jersey. California, New Jersey. Any questions from the audience for John?
Now, on your interior,
Well, so you'll ask, just so that we can record it, ask your questions, I'll repeat it, and then he'll answer. So go ahead. No, I'm saying you ask your questions, and I'll repeat your question.
what do you treat the metal inside with?
What did you treat the metal
After you
inside?
clean the original rust out of the way, did you treat the metal with any kind of acid or anything?
Yeah, my son uses, there's a acid etch primer. Right. So he puts that on, but he has something else that he wipes it down with, which is just almost like that muriatic acid to get all the surface rust off. And then he puts the acid etch primer on, and then he puts K38 primer on it. And then before we put the undercoating back on again, we paint everything with Rust-Oleum damp-proof. Yeah, it's just their black paint, and it dries perfect like you want it to. And then we undercoat it with Worth Schutz, which is water-based, and then paint on top of that again. So it's step, 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 step.
Yeah, but it comes out good. That's what you're looking for.
Yes. And when I judge the cars, I don't want to look underneath and see shiny black, or some people say, I hate undercoating, I'm just going to make it like a GT. Yeah. Because it sounds like if you went on that rally, on the gimmick rally yesterday, you wouldn't have been able to keep that car with the noise that was coming off all the rocks that were hitting everything.
We have a question in the back.
Keep saying undercoating, so the original cars came with undercoating?
Yeah. if
So
you
the question is, did the original cars come with undercoating?
Yes, they did. If you get a chance to go on YouTube again and look at Made by Hand, you'll see a car on a little rack. It's all bare metal, no primer, no paint. And the guy sat there with this no mask on or anything and shot this black tar undercoating on it. And then they painted the car red, white, or whatever, and then they took a brush and painted those areas that they got paint on black. So they really didn't do a good job of it. Maybe if they did this after the car was painted, we would have had a lot more of them around. But it was bare metal. And everything that you scrape down, if you have a 356, it'll either be shiny, bright metal underneath it or all brown.
Can you confirm this urban legend for me? I've heard where maybe it was when they were doing the undercoating at the factory, but the vehicles were sort of on a rotisserie, and to do the undercoating or whatever it was underneath, they had the car on a rotisserie and they turned it. And as many of you know how a rotisserie works, it turns, but there's a stop point and something leans up against the chassis. Is that true?
What he did, the worker there, is he brought it 3/4 of the way up and put a wooden stick underneath it to hold it.
And is there a mark from that wooden stick from the cars, or?
No, because they painted that.
They painted over that too?
Yeah, but the stick, it's funny to see this because you don't know how anybody could live in it after working on these cars back in '56 to up to the 911s, because they were undercoated with like a plastic material, the 911s. But this is tar right up to 65.
Wow. Any other questions for John? In the back.
John, just from a modern business standpoint, I'm sure everybody knows your shop reputation and so forth. But at some point, I would think when some guy's asking about leaving the patina, you have to step up knowing that everybody's going to say, oh, that came from John Paterek's shop, right? You have to be able to say to the guys, you can't let it go out like that, because our reputation is to send out a car in great shape. What do you do with it?
So the question is, when you get a customer that wants patina, prior to the current trend of patina, cars that came out of your shop were, restored to original or preserved to original. Now you're letting cars come out of your shop that are patina with potentially the Paterek brand attached to it. How do you feel? How do you deal with that?
Well, the only thing that really shows a downside is the chrome, like the guy's bezels on his gauges that were pitted like you can't believe, but he wanted them done like that. But when they look at the rest of that car with that red paint all worn off of it, they're never going to question who did the non-restoration on the car.
So with all the cars that were here at Parade, what's the quality of cars that you notice today versus cars, say, 20 years when you were judging?
Well, we judged that same 55 Speedster at One People's Choice, and Pete Bartelli, when we did his car in '97, he almost had $80,000 in the restoration, and the fellow that wanted to buy it said, I want to be co-owner in it. Okay. I said, this is how it works. If it gets one trophy, you get the car for 80. If it gets 3 trophies, it's 100,000. So it got People's Choice, Judge's Choice, and First in Class.
So the highest bill.
So he got to pay, and he was one of the few people that ever paid that much for one. That was '97.
Wow.
And now you can't, if I go looking for speedsters, I want a speedster. Okay, I want a black one. Well, forget it. You're gonna, what are there, 6 of them made maybe?
There was one in Maryland. Come on, they're not that uncommon.
Yeah, but I usually call it resale red, but that car was resale black.
Yeah.
And if you saw the cracks in that thing. But I like it the way it looks. And Andrew, he's crazy about it because he takes it out for a ride, and he's finally going to let the owner drive it.
So your business originally was yourself and your brother.
Now it's...
And you talk about Andrew a lot. keeping it in the family.
Yes.
And with 356 and all classic cars out there, it's great to see that you're passing the knowledge and trade on to your son, but that's pretty rare today's, right? Like I think a lot of kids, even though their parents might be the expert in that particular industry, it's not necessarily being transferred down. Like, are there other 356 experts or motor builders? Are you seeing them passing on that knowledge to the next generation?
I know Jim Newton from Connecticut. His staff is carrying on from where because he's sort of semi-retired now, and I am too. I mean, I do 20-hour weeks instead of 40, which is good. And Andrew's he's getting better with the customers too, and that's something they have to be. You can't just tell them to get this piece of junk out of the shop.
You mean tell it like it is?
So he went to look at a car for a guy, and he drove for 2.5 hours, and he walked around the car, and he didn't even ask to start or anything. He says, "I'm done. See ya." So the guy that owned the car says, "But I want you to drive it." He says, "Yeah, I don't need to drive it. I do not want this for my customer. Done."
Yeah, and that's probably one of the most difficult things is having not only the transfer of knowledge, but now you're basically your son, maybe he enjoys doing the mechanicals and such, but he also has to learn the business side and the customer side of it. And that's tough to find somebody that can handle all aspects of the business. And it's something in such high demand, right? And with the values of these cars, I got to imagine that you have a pretty long waiting list to get cars done.
Yeah, we have a full shop, but we also have cars that you wouldn't think we would work on. We have a 35 Mercedes. If you saw Raiders of the Lost Ark, Harrison Ford was bashing into the back of this Mercedes with a truck.
You have that?
We have one of those. It's a four-door Phaeton. It is probably the worst car I've ever seen in my life. It came from Peter Kumar, and when he has the worst cars, he calls my good friend.
You know this is going to be recorded, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking. Just checking.
But he calls Frank Gump up, he's right now he's 92 and he's restoring 4 cars at one time, and he says, "I'll take it." So we bring the car to the shop. There's not one piece of wood that's good in the entire car. The metal is rotted 6 inches from the ground up. Okay, let's restore it. So how are you going to find guys like that?
Right.
But he's doing that, a BMW 327, an Aston Martin, and another BMW, all at one time.
All at one time. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, John Paterek, Paterek Brothers. And for those that are watching the video, if you enjoyed this segment, if you enjoyed all of our other videos, please be sure to like and subscribe. We're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers, and you all can each make a difference. We'll catch you next time.